security within SharePoint. And what is the best part? You say that by default, when you create a site within a SharePoint, or by default, when you create a web app within a SharePoint, whatever the permission we have on the top, it is going to inherit below. So let's say for an example, a user SP admin have the permission on top. Then when you create any another item below that, so let's say for an example, within SharePoint, I'm going to configure a web application. You will find that by default, it say that SharePoint admin have permission on this side. And when you create within the web app a site collection, to your surprise, you will find SP admin is also here. When we create a subsite, we get that SP admin is also here. So what does it mean? It means that whatever the permission we assign on the top, it is going to flow down the bottom. And this we call it as a permission inheritance. In a SharePoint, by default, whatever the permission you are going to assign, permission is going to inherit below. This is really tricky exactly. Tricky in the sense, let's say I have a folder in my document management system. Within this folder, I may have a 3 subfolder. Folder 1, folder 2, folder 3. And within this subfolder, I may have a document which can be doc1, doc2. So on top level, when I try to assign a permission on a main folder, so let's say for an example, on this folder, if I assign a permission of Tom, then by default, Tom get the permission of all 3 subfolders. So if we do not carefully configure the permission, what will happen? If I assign a permission on one of the folder, but I want that particular user should not get the access of this document. Now, by default, this is not possible. So whatever you permission you assign on the top, by default, it is going to flow down on the bottom. So permission inheritance is one of the characteristics of SharePoint. Say that whatever you configure on the top, it is going to flow down on the bottom. So it means that when I have this whole hierarchy, and let's say for an example, when I am going to create another document or a folder hierarchy within this document, maybe I'm going to have a file which is going to be part of this particular document itself. I can go there and I can define that how this document is going to be accessed. I can come here and I can define this specific document, how it is going to be accessed by the user, who can edit, who can view. But if I give anyone a permission on a topest folder, so let's say for an example, I have a folder Now I'm going to say that this is a folder top, and within this top folder, if I have further folder which is called child1, and if I have another folder which is called child2, what I am exactly going to get now? Now, when I go back and assign the permission on the top folder, I will found that this particular folder will have, or child folder may have a same permission. So for an example, if I give a user, maybe a team, a permission to view or maybe an edit, and when I click share, by default, this particular user also get the access of child1 and a child2. Maybe I do not want the user team to get the access of child2, but this is very hard because the permission is already get inherited here. So it means that in SharePoint, when we are working on a permission and a security, first we have to configure our hierarchy pretty clear, that what should be my top level hierarchy, who is going to manage that. Whomsoever is a top level hierarchy, by default they have an access of everything which you created below that. They can alter the permission because whatever the permission we assign on the top, the permission by default going to flow down below. And this is exactly the permission what we have. If I want to stop the inheritance, we have an option that on each child, we can stop the inheritance and we can define unique permission. So whenever we are going to create a child within that, what the option we have? We say we are going to assign a unique permission. And when we say unique permission, it means that whatever the permission I have on the top, that is not going to impact me, that is not going to be flowed on to me. So that is the reason why last time when we create a site and a sub-site, I have an option that I am going to either use the permission which is available by default, or I can have a permission which is a unique one. So either we can let the permission to inherit from top to bottom, or either we can block it and we can say that no, this child will have a unique permission. So this is the way we can calculate what the effective permission user is going to get and how the user is going to have a permission on this specific site. One way of managing permission here, you can assign this to user by user. But let's say for an example, I have 10 users who need a read permission. It is very inconvenience for us as an admin to assign each user one by one, because when you search each user one by one, it's going to take a time. So way one by one, you can assign permission to all 10 users. All 10 users. Another way is that I can create a group, and this group is going to have a same permission whatever you are granted to a group. So what does it means? On a SharePoint, I have an option to assign permission on the resources one by one. So let's say, for example, this is my resource. It can be my site, my document, or anything. Let's say, for an example, I say that this is a site. Now I have a 10 user team, Tom, Tom, Kim, name. Now these user need to have a read access. So what is the first method? I am going to assign all user one by one, and then I can say that this specific user will have a permission. So for an example, when I go here and when I come back to my site, and when I try to assign a permission to a user, or maybe when I want to check this user a specific permission, I can click this user. It is land me to the site where I can say that this particular user, what exact permission they are looking for. So if I go and say edit an item, I can define that what this user is exactly about and what type of permission this user require. Same way, when I am going to share a site to any specific user, I can go and check that what this user exactly looking for and what this user exactly like the permission, what type of permission this user is going to be work on. And then when we have defined a lower level permission, I can may have an option to create a group. And what group? I'm going to create a group where I have all 10 user, and then this group have a common permission. So I can go ahead and configure a group in a state of assigning each user one by one permission. So when you notice, when we try to configure a site, a subsite, let's say I say that this is my demo 7. This is my site called demo 7. And when I go and define permission for this user, for this specific site, I say unique permission. And when we say click create, it is going to present me the next screen. In the next screen, what it is going to ask me? It said that please create a group. And they suggest the name called demo 7 visitor, demo 7 member. What it all say? What exactly, who all is a member of that group? Another way, if I see here, I am going to get already 3 groups. So by default, SharePoint have already created these 3 groups. One is called members, one is called owner, one is called visitor. And for each group, they have assigned very specific permission. What exactly the permission they are looking for. So we have a more group which we can go and check. Look at that. These are the groups which we created during the last time. HR member, HR owner, site 1 member, site 1 owner. So whatever the group we create in our last lab, when we create 2 sub-site, HR site and a site 1, there already we have given the default group name, and that group name is going to have a permission. And then accordingly, when we see that, here we can go and search all the user who can be part of my security group. So we have a by default three group: member, owner, and a visitor. The SharePoint by default going to give you three group as per the permission. One is called a member. Who is a member? The person who can contribute. Member group have by default a read access. They also have a write access. What they can't do, they do not have a delete access. They cannot delete anything which is created by some other user. Then we have something which is called a visitor. What visitor does? Visitor has only a read permission and he can list the folder, how many folder we have. But they cannot change anything. They also not have a right to upload any document or do any kind of a changes. And then the last group which we have is called a owner group. What owner group is going to do? It has full permission. They can read, they can write, they can modify, they can delete, they can do everything. So by default, what security SharePoint is going to give you? They say that I have already this member, visitor, and owner group. But if you do not want to use this default group, you can create your own group. So that is the reason why it's going to give me a two choices: use an existing group or use default group or create your own group. So whenever we create a group, we have totally different permission. We can assign different kind of a security to the user. User who can be part of any of these groups. So in general, when we try to implement or design a security for my SharePoint, we have to first understand how the SharePoint as a hierarchy we need to design. And then who require a permission on a top level, who require permission on a down level, and what permission exactly. Permission as a member, permission as a visitor, permission as an owner. You have all three ways where you can define who can do what. Later on, we also understand how we can make a user a member of these default groups as well. So far, if I create my own group, then I can define which user is a member of this group. But if I use default group, then this option gone. It means that by default, when I say member, only the user who has a right assigned by SharePoint administrator can be a member. And how SharePoint administrator is going to define a member? This is through this one. So it means that these are the groups which is going to be managed by my SharePoint administrator. Who can be a member of this group? Who can be a member of another group? Who going to be my farm administrator? Who is going to be my delegated administrator? So everything is defined in very, very categorically in a SharePoint. Who is going to do what? So for an example, if I want to make someone a member of this SharePoint group, then I can pick that user and say that, hey, Mr. Tom, you are also now a SharePoint administrator, because this specific group is controlling the complete SharePoint, including all your site collection, all your web application, everything. So at the very top of the hierarchy, what we have? We have a SharePoint security. Who is going to be a SharePoint administrator? Any people who want to be a SharePoint administrator, they must need to be part of SharePoint admin group. And then the SharePoint admin group can create a web application, and then SharePoint administrator can define a top level administrator for web application. Now, this top level administrator of the web application can go and configure multiple site collection. And then this Tom can define who is going to be administrator of site collection 1 and who is going to be administrator of site collection 2. Then this site collection administrator is going to create a subsite. And then on a subsite, this site administrator or site collection administrator is going to define who is having what right and who is having what permission. By default, if they do not distinguish the permission, then the permission is going to inherit it from top to bottom. So whatever permission we assign on a top end level, permission is going to flow at below level. And this way, security can be compromised sometime if we do not carefully distinguish who require what permission. Because maybe a user Tom get an access of a document 1, which he should not be. But just I have assigned a permission on a topics folder, so he get the permission of every child object, whatever we created, right? So permission inheritance, by default, you have to be blocked, so that topics permission not necessarily need to be followed down to a bottom permission. And to simplify your permission level, how you are going to control the security, the best way is that use group. Make the user a member of a group and then assign permission on the group itself instead of going member by member. Because in a large organization, when you have 100 user, 1,000 user, 10,000 user, it is very hard to play with the permission user by user. And what 3 permission they have given? 3 group by default we have: member, visitor, and order. What member is going to get? Default permission is read, write, and delete own object, not the other one. While visitor have only a read write, and they can list the folder content. While owner have only read, write, modify, delete, they can do whatever we have. Whatever the group we create, that is also pretty interesting in a SharePoint. So let's say for an example, when I am creating this child site, when I try to create a child site, if I select that I want to create this group, by default, this group is available for your SharePoint administrator to assign. So it means that whenever anywhere in the whole hierarchy, if you create any group, let's say I create a group here. Maybe my group name is, let's say, uh, demo group, and I make 3 user a member of this demo group. Now group created by a site one administrator, but surprisingly, site two administrator can also see this group. Site collection administrator can also see this group. Web application administrator also able to see this group. Means anywhere in the whole hierarchy, if group is created, then it is available for everyone to use it. No matter who create the group is going to be available everywhere. So that is the reason why on this new site, I'm able to see the group created by other site member. For example, HR. This group is created by HR sub-site administrator, but it is available for me to use. So it means that in a whole hierarchy, no matter who create the group is available everywhere to use by the whole system. So that is the reason why sometime in an organization, to create a group while configuring a site, you have to take a permission that, hey guy, I am going to create a group, because you create the group, but it is available in the whole hierarchy to be used for. Anyone can use this group. And this group, even if you delete the site, group never delete. So it means that even if I delete the HR site, this group is still available, because whatever the group I have created as an HR admin, that group always remains exist until and unless it is deleted by top level administrator, like a SharePoint administrator. So group once created, it is always available within SharePoint system till the time SharePoint admin or maybe a site admin, site collection administrator do not delete that group. So that is the reason why many organizations say that whenever someone create a group, they need a permission, because group in a SharePoint is always available for the whole hierarchy. So whatever the group you create, basically this group is not created here. This group is going to be created at this level. You might think that I have created this group for my own site. How it is visible to site 2 administrator? How it is visible to site collection administrator? Whatever the group you configure, it is basically created here, because your web application is going to store data and a metadata both. And since web application has the information of this group, by default, web application is going to replicate this information across the site hierarchy. Everyone knows that, hey guys, one group is available. So it means that even if I remove this site, group never delete. Group always exists. Group always there to be worked upon. So let's again play with this group. Create a new site collection here. I'm going to give you a control. Try that one. Yeah. Try now. Click application management. And let's create a new site collection. Maybe we can say a group demo.